Well, now it's time for him to talk more about himself. More about him and how he was confused, how he didn't know what to do, how everything around him was just too much. He says that Pa called him and Pa said, "Dear boy, it's time for us to talk about your future." So Harry and Pa go, have a little meeting, and Pa says, "Well, what do you want to do? You gotta come up with something." And Harry says, you know what I'd really love to do? And I've been wanting to do this for a while. I really think I'd make a great ski instructor. You know that place that Mummy always took us? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking I want to do. Cause man, that fondue at that place we like to go to, that like rock your world. If I could do that, like ski all day and eat fondue, man, that'd be the life. It's like, you really did fry your brain, didn't you? You're a prince. You don't need to be a ski instructor eating fondue all day, okay? Back off the cheese and go find something decent to do. So Pa's like, no. And so he's like, okay, what about a safari guide? What about that? And Pa's like, no, I don't think so. And so they go back and forth. They can't decide. He wants to do something really out of the box. Kind of wants to disappear just like Mummy did. Again with Mummy's disappearance. When are you going to get over it? And then he says that, you know, the problem is that people just didn't understand him, okay? Because he was hugely ambitious. And people called him lazy, and people said that he, you know, just wasn't with it. But, you know, he might have looked lazy, and he might have never done any of his schoolwork, and he might have always been looking how to dip out of things. But the truth is, he had goals and ambitions. He wasn't really sure what those goals were, but he had them. And he says that he just, this passage here to me, I was just like, well, this was an epic fail. He says, I didn't want to be one of those cocktail slurping, eye-rolled, causing sloths everyone avoided at family gatherings. There'd have been plenty of those in my family going back centuries. Well, how unfortunate that you've become an even more unseemly blemish on the family name. You could have only hoped to be a cocktail slurping, eye-roll causing sloth, and instead you've come into the family with a machine gun, piling everybody down in front of you. But Pa says, look, you've got to find something, some kind of work that is meaningful to you. And Pa, according to Harry, he says that Pa claims he'd always been discouraged from hard work because he couldn't do anything that was going, especially as the heir, he couldn't do anything that was going to take attention off the monarch. But he had found work that was thrilling for him, and he wanted the same thing for Harry. I just don't think that Pa would have said that. I don't believe that statement that Pa says to him, I've always been held back because I'm not supposed to be taking anything away from the monarchy. That's such a Harry way of looking at things. I don't think Pa said that. But they've got to decide something for him to do. And it's just not press him to go to university. Pa knows that's probably not in the cards for him. Academically, it's just, I mean, it is just a blessing straight from God Almighty that he even got out of Eton. The fact that he managed that was more than anybody had ever hoped. And we can only imagine they passed that guy right on through. What are you going to hold back the prince? Please. So the thing is that everything he says is just so annoying. He says that like all of his choices for life are just based on such stupidity that it boggles the mind. He talks about how, okay, I can't be a ski instructor. Okay, I can't be a safari guide. Then he talks about the fact that Pa wasn't pressing him to go to university and really didn't interest him. But he had thought about this going to the University of Bristol because maybe it might be fun to take a couple of courses in art history. A lot of pretty girls in that subject. It's like, that is so stupid. That's so dumb. That's how you guide your way through life, where the pretty girl's gonna be. No wonder you're an idiot. I mean, it's like, it's just so sophomoric. You are done with your education. You're about to embark in the world as a man. Okay? You cannot be guiding your life choices based on where are the pretty girls. Get a life. Then he says that during this conversation, Pa sort of steered him away from the idea of university. And Pa was just like, look, let's face facts. You're not the family scholar. And he didn't say it to be cutting. Harry even says, Pa wasn't trying to hurt me. Pa wasn't trying to say something that was cutting, but it stung me. It stung me deeply. Because I didn't think he had to say that out loud. And so they just go round and round and round and round. It's a long passage of him just talking about I didn't know what to do. I could have done this. Maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do, I can't do that because I'm a blah, 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 blah. So dull. Finally, they land on the fact that the army, that's what you should do. Why don't you go and use all of this energy and patriotism and, you know, love of military history? Why don't you go make some good use of that? And it seems to me that that should have been thought number one in his head. In the royal tradition, being part of the armed forces is an obvious. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, why wasn't that his thought number one? That is such a good fit for him. See, I mean, ski instructor, get out of here with that. It took him so long to come around to the most obvious thing he could have possibly thought to do. So they decide that that's what he should do. He'll join the army, but he'll join the army because he really liked to play with his tin soldiers. So I guess that's an indication that this is the best career path for him. And quite frankly, probably they were right. So then Pa says, okay, but why don't you take a gap year? Take a gap year, darling boy. Have some adventures. The thing is, again, this is so classic Harry. He always writes in such kind ways about his father, with what his father says, but then all of his asides and commentary on his father as a person are so negative. And I don't know if he's trying to, I don't know what his point is there. Is he trying to make the character of Paul more well-rounded in the sense that he was really kind, but I never felt close to him? So they're trying to decide about what he's going to do. And they decide that he's going to spend some time in Australia. And so he says here, so I sat down with Marco and I tried to decide what those adventures might look like. We settled first on Australia, spent half the year working on a farm. Excellent. As for the second half of the year, Africa. I told Marco I'd like to join the fight against AIDS, that this would be an homage to Mummy. An explicit continuation of her work didn't need to be spelled out. Marco went away, did some research, came back to me, and said, Lesotho. I'd never heard of it, I confessed. He educated me. It was a landlocked country, a lovely country bordering South Africa, a lot of work, lots of need, loads of work to be done. I was overjoyed. A plan, at last. Yeah, a plan somebody else made for you. He just waits around for everybody to tell him what he's going to do. Maybe he is dumb. I hate to call anybody foolish, but maybe something isn't okay with him. He can't seem to figure out for himself what to do next. He's got like one foot nailed to the floor and he's just walking around in circles. Someone help me, someone help me, someone help me. Oh, Marco, plan, okay. And he's just completely and totally inept.